2.5 days after the chilling terrorist attacks in Paris, French security forces are responding on a series of fronts. I have with me Roula Khalaf, the Financial Times' foreign editor. Roula, some are talking of a sophisticated network linking ISIS in Syria with jihadis in Europe. How different is this from previous attacks in Europe?
I think the way we have to think of it is until now, most of the attacks that we've seen in Europe have been inspired rather than organized by ISIS. And ISIS's motto has been, if you can't come to Syria, do whatever you can at home. There are indications in this case, and because of the sophistication of the attacks, these indications suggest that these attacks were organized in Syria by ISIS as an organization, but also that ISIS may have sent some people through Greece to Paris.
So what you're talking about then is that there's a serious sort of coordinating cell in Syria which is dedicated to disrupting Western Europe and indeed to killing people.
Well, we don't know that. I think it's still early to tell exactly how this is being done. But what we do know is that ISIS, until very recently, was very different from Qaeda in that it was a lot more focused on building what they claim to be a caliphate, on maintaining territory, on organizing themselves in Syria and in Iraq, and that they were not as concerned with global jihad, which was what Qaeda was about. What's happening today, and this is a critical point, is that ISIS is also taking on the global jihad fight that Al-Qaeda waged for a very long time.
But this sophistication comes in the wake of the West and its allies spending billions of dollars in a campaign to disrupt and indeed to end ISIS. I mean, what does this tell us about the effectiveness of the air campaign?
Well, I mean, we know that the whole effort to degrade and defeat ISIS has not been successful. This is clear. Part of the reason is that ISIS is now embedded within these territories in Iraq and Syria. And so it's very difficult to get rid of ISIS without having massive collateral damage. And this is what has been holding back the American-led coalition.
So do you anticipate, though, that this is going to lead to a massive escalation of the coalition? We saw that there were French air raids overnight. I mean, are they just sort of pinpricks for public consumption?
I mean, I think the French had to do something. How effective, we don't know yet, because we're not sure of what the targets were. But if they could have been effective, then I think that the Americans and others would have targeted, would have chosen the same targets before. I think the debate that will now take place is, can you have a more concerted effort to retake at least Raqqa or Mosul? This is what the Americans have been saying they want to do. But that cannot only be done from the air. It is a question of whether anyone is willing to put in ground troops.
But no one will be willing to put boots in on the ground.
Well, so far, no. But I think the question that's going to be raised now is whether the Paris attacks change both the way that people are thinking about the threat from ISIS outside of Syria and Iraq, and also who can, what kind of coalition could be put together.
I mean, one other weakness that this awful attack seems to have exposed is a weakness of intelligence and the security forces in France and indeed in Belgium. I mean, look, earlier this year there were those awful Charlie Hebdo attacks, and 10 or 11 months later, whatever it is, there's an even worse attack. It doesn't look as if, I say look, as if the French security forces have done enough homework.
Well, I think that's a very good question, and it's a question that's going to be raised. It's not being raised yet. There are reasons, of course, for the security failure. The way that the jihadis are communicating is different from what we had in the past. Many of them are under the radar screen of security forces. But even those that aren't, there are so many of them now that it takes a massive, massive effort to be able to track them. You might have seen that the news this morning was that one of the people who is thought to have been involved in the attacks was actually stopped on the way back to Brussels and then let go. And I think these will be questions that will be raised later this week.
Thank you, Roula. Sobering stuff, and I fear still more questions than answers. For all the latest news, analysis, including our deep and far-reaching ISIS investigations, go to ft.com.